Hey everybody, David the AI Guide here on Saturday. I'd like to thank all my new subscribers. Picked up about 10 this week. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. This week we're talking about AI and sports, which we've never talked about before. New topic. But AI is really starting to penetrate heavily into sports, and we're going to talk about a few of the ways that's happening. So the first, I'm going to use baseball as an example, but it's the same is true for football, basketball, soccer, and all the major sports. They're using big data and really driving stats that they've never had before. Tons of stats. Like if you listen to a game now, they talk about all these stats that 20 years ago didn't even exist. Why? Because they couldn't even measure that kind of thing back then. So why are they having so many new statistics coming out of professional sports? Well, they're the reasons we've talked about: the convergence of multiple technologies, artificial intelligence to crunch all that data, cloud computing to create the big data, and then sensors, lots of sensors, cameras. The technology in terms of cameras, as you guys know from your cell phone, has increased dramatically in the last few years. So in terms of possible careers and stuff, this is a great area, big data, right? Because they're going to need data engineers, which are really software engineers, for the foreseeable future. That is something that isn't going away. The second example I wanted to talk about AI in sports is a company called Peak Performance Project, P3, started by Dr. Marcus Elliott in Santa Barbara, California. So what he does is, he started this in 2006. He literally invented a whole new field, which is analyzing the movements of all of the prospective pro and current pro athletes to see which ones were going to be successful in their career and to help them avoid injury. And so what he does is they build models, AI models of injury risk for an individual and performance. So you name a lot of the famous basketball players today, like Zion Williamson, they've all spent multiple years at P3 being evaluated and analyzed. And of course, the teams are using this now before they pick someone. So what does this mean, like injury risk model and a performance model? This is all about human movement and mechanics. So body mechanics. And what they're looking for is asymmetries, which means you favor one side over the other, or you move differently to one side or the other. Why? Because that kind of unbalanced movement or asymmetric movement leads to injury. So it's very interesting that Dr. Elliott, once he set this up and really started doing it, he was able to determine which athletes were going to be successful and last. So with the data that he would generate, he could tell which athletes, because of them having asymmetries in their physical movements, were going to end up going pro but getting injured very quickly and falling out of the pro ranks, or having a run for a while, but then building up a repetitive stress kind of injury. Or finally, those few, like LeBron, who keep going and going and going. And he's been remarkably successful at predicting which athletes are going to develop injuries early on and which athletes are in for the long run. And how is this all being done? By artificial intelligence and sensors. So they're developing not only peak performance, but baseball, you're talking hundreds of millions to billions of pieces of data. No human being could ever process all of that. So it simply wouldn't work without AI. AI is the tool, and cloud computing is the mechanism, and sensors are the mechanism by which huge step forwards in understanding human movement and anatomy is made possible. And this is in sports. We've talked about medicine extensively. Another one is a company called Semi Reality Motion Systems, which actually built the camera system for Dr. Elliott and P3. And this system is revolutionary. Why? Because to get any kind of data like this, athletes used to have to wear sensors physically attached to their body so it could measure their movements and all that. The camera system developed by Semi Reality Motion Systems skips all that. They can actually film baseball games, film basketball games, film football games, and get these hundreds of millions of points of data and get to the kind of analysis that Dr. Elliott is doing without sensors attached to the body and during regular game environments, which before it had to be in a lab and very controlled. So this kind of technology, which is ultra high-speed camera technology, is an enabling technology as a sensor for artificial intelligence. And this has been revolutionary. It's really changed the sports field, and especially the sports medicine field. And then finally, the things, and I've mentioned it briefly, but the things that facilitate all of this when it comes to sports is cloud computing. So we're talking Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, and Amazon Cloud, and of course deep learning algorithms, because these deep learning algorithms, as we've talked about multiple times, can take hundreds of millions of data points from different people, and then you feed in the injury information, right? And these algorithms can determine if an athlete moves certain ways, they're going to get injured, or they're going to have injuries, or they're going to develop them later due to these unbalanced movements or asymmetries. On the other hand, they've been able to use this technology to identify breakthrough athletes because they have the unique ability to move very quickly in a way that does not lead to injury. And so they're really being able to identify who will be successful more and more in pro sports by using AI, big data, cloud computing, and the type of AI they're using is deep learning and sensors and cameras. It's all needed. It's all essential. It all works together. You can't get to this kind of result without having all of it. So as I said, exponential technologies improving exponentially fast and converging to lead to true breakthroughs like what's happened in sports. So I hope you like this. If you like it, please subscribe and share this video. And look for more on sports. We'll keep this going now that we've started talking about how artificial intelligence is penetrating sports. Thanks a lot. Take care. Have a good rest of the weekend.